Hello, everybody, and welcome to Real Talk. And it's been a while since I took a little deep dive into fighting. I always loved the sport, but I just had a little bit of a disconnect over the last, I don't know, like 10 years or whatever. And I think one of the things, I always love the sport. I always like it, and I know what's going on. I'm not as familiar with a lot of the current fighters and champions, but one of the things that just kind of disillusioned me a little bit was just the eventual and almost inescapable fate of a lot of the guys we I idolized when I started watching. From Rampage to Silva to George St. Pierre, even John Jones. It just seems like it's a very unceremonious, downhill cliff. Downhill cliff. But anyway, it's just this does not have a storybook ending, and it's very hard to see sometimes. It's like I'm going back to, guys like Silva or GSP. It's now Anderson Silva. Everyone that's ever watched my videos knows how much I love Silva, but after that such a dominating run in the UFC, it just seemed like fight by fight. Since Weidman, he lost his title. Next fight, loses his leg. The next fight after that, he tests positive. And then all the losses and losses, until the fact that you just seem so. The guy you see fighting is so far departed from his glory days that it's hard to really look at those the same without, seeing the tarnish that's happened since then. And even a guy with a much better record, who left the sport seemingly on top, George St. Pierre. It seemed like even with him, he won and defended his title against all comers a record number of times, took a couple years off, came back, won the middleweight title, and it seems like, no matter where I look, and forgive me because I read Sherdog, but it seems like he didn't do enough. He should have did this, and it's like nobody comes in, nobody gets the respect they deserve, and it never ends well. Don't even get me started on John Jones. That's just a whole shit show. But anyway, and this kind of brings me to what we saw last night. And I think this is probably the saddest fall from grace, the saddest, just situation I've ever seen in like from a mixed martial artist career. I think one thing I can compare it to, one thing that just brought to mind was, just Tito Ortiz or guys like Mayhem Miller, guys that, are pretty good fighters. Tito Ortiz, of course, a champion, a face of the sport, an MMA legend and Hall of Famer. It just seemed like when he fell from serious contendership, his biggest, his lack of his lack of relevance did nothing to assuage his thirst for the spotlight. So you see him going out there making a fool out of himself, tripping over his words, making, silly, cringy speeches all the time. But even then, he keeps himself relatively healthy. He lives very well. And, I'm happy for him in that regard. But it's like, this guy really talked himself away from the respect he deserves because he's always because even as big a star as he is, and as big a legend as he is, it's not nearly as big as he thinks it is. But, ego's one thing. But what happened with Conor McGregor Saturday, that is just dangerous, sad, and deranged. I don't know what to think about that. It's not the losing. It's like he really hasn't really done much since the Floyd Mayweather fight. I thought he should have retired after that. Take your money and go. He really didn't have anything to prove. No matter what you think of Conor, his rise to the top was something that I've never seen before, and probably something I'll never see again. Of course, everyone thinks about all the talking, all the push, all the hype, and everything, but he stepped into the ring with the best featherweights in the world, beat them, took out, one of the most dominant champions in like less than the time of a TikTok. Then moved up after, engaging in a feud with a journeyman. But he moved up and he beat the lightweight champion Eddie Alvarez in dominant fashion. What he's done in his place in fight history, it's amazing. But what makes this fall so sad isn't the fact that he got his ass kicked by Dustin Poirier for the second time in a row. It wasn't even the fact that he suffered a gruesome injury. I'm sick of seeing that, so I hate that. That's maybe it's a squeamish in me, but the problem here is just like I talked about with Ortiz. This man is sitting on the cage, sitting up against the cage next to Joe Rogan in what has to be excruciating pain. But yet, the pain is not great enough for him to let go of the spotlight. This guy's sitting down in two pieces. Yet he has to have a microphone. He has to cut a promo. He cannot let go. And that is just the worst thing about that. Because, I've seen him do some crazy things and you kind of write it off like slamming a dolly into a bus, a bus. I probably should look more into that. But the fact of the matter is the damage he'll do to others. And now that you've seen this, everything else is coming together from the dolly to the old man to him sitting right there. He has no regard for others. He doesn't even have any regard for himself. As long as he's in the news, as long as he's around, he's going to do whatever it takes. And as the champion that he is, the human being that he is, the father and husband, I don't know if he's married, but you're watching a horrifying descent here. And I don't know why Joe Rogan did that, why the UFC allowed that. It's like you've seen people break their legs, or it's like this man needs to go to a hospital. But he's so addicted to the spotlight. He was going to just battle through all kinds of pain just to be seen. And I hope I never see him again, at least until he's in fully within his right mind, which I don't think he'll ever be if he's associated with the octagon. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on it. It's like whoever's watching, all two of you or whatever, thank you. It's like if you got wild hair, give me a like, even a sub. Does wonders for my motivation. And until then, may good times be had by all.